The Zephyrian detention facility hummed with the low vibration of anti-gravity generators suspended 3 miles above the crimson surface of Kepler 442c. Inside the sterile white corridors, alien guards moved with the casual arrogance of conquerors who had never known defeat. Their elongated limbs and translucent skin gave them an ethereal appearance, but their cold, calculating eyes revealed the brutal efficiency that had made them the dominant military force in this sector of the galaxy. Staff Sergeant Marcus Kane sat motionless in his restraint chair, watching his captors through eyes that betrayed nothing. The titanium alloy shackles around his wrists and ankles were designed to hold beings 3 times stronger than baseline humans, according to the technical specifications he'd overheard during his capture. What his alien captors didn't know was that Marcus Kane wasn't baseline anything. The human colony ship, New Horizon, had been 3 days out from the agricultural world of Haven's Rest when the Zephyrian battlecruisers emerged from hyperspace. The attack had been swift and merciless. Plasma cannons tore through the ship's hull like tissue paper, venting atmosphere and lives into the cold vacuum of space. Marcus had been in the cargo bay, checking on the military supplies bound for the Colonial Defense Force when the first impact sent him tumbling across the deck. By the time he'd regained his footing, emergency klaxons were wailing and the ship was dying around him. Through the chaos, he'd managed to reach one of the escape pods, but not before witnessing something that burned itself into his memory. The Zephyrians weren't just destroying the ship. They were systematically hunting down and executing every human they found. Men, women, children. It made no difference to them. They moved through the corridors like death itself, their energy weapons cutting down fleeing civilians without hesitation. Marcus had made his choice in that moment. Instead of launching his escape pod toward the nearby planet, he'd programmed it to ram the nearest Zephyrian boarding shuttle. The impact had been spectacular, taking out 12 alien soldiers and damaging their ship's docking bay. It had also landed him here, the sole survivor and prisoner from a massacre of 8,000 human souls. The detention bay doors hissed open, and 3 Zephyrian guards entered. Their leader, a tall specimen with intricate scarification covering his pale arms, approached with the swagger of someone accustomed to breaking lesser beings. Marcus had learned his name was Sub-Commander Vextal, a veteran of 17 planetary conquests. "The human awakens," Vextal said, his voice carrying the melodic quality common to his species, though it was tainted with cruel amusement. "Tell me, primitive creature, does your kind always throw away their lives so meaninglessly? Your pathetic ramming maneuver accomplished nothing except ensuring your own capture." Marcus remained silent, his dark eyes fixed on a point somewhere past the alien's shoulder. He'd learned long ago that silence often revealed more about an enemy than interrogation ever could. During his 15 years in the United States Marine Corps, he'd been captured twice, once by insurgents in the Syria conflict, and once during a classified operation in the outer colonies that officially never happened. Both times he'd kept his mouth shut and his eyes open until the opportunity for escape presented itself. "Nothing to say?" Vextal moved closer, his face mere inches from Marcus's. The alien's breath smelled of ozone and something vaguely metallic. "Perhaps you don't understand the gravity of your situation. Your entire transport has been destroyed. Every human aboard is dead. Your pathetic species lacks the capability for interstellar warfare, so no rescue is coming. You are alone, human, and you will die alone." The other 2 guards laughed, a sound like wind chimes mixed with breaking glass. One of them, smaller and younger than the others, stepped forward eagerly. "Sub-Commander, perhaps we should demonstrate the futility of human resistance. I have heard they are remarkably fragile." Vextal raised a hand, stopping his subordinate. "Patience, Kilaran. This one interests me. Did you know, human, that your species has only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, By our records, it has been less than 50 of your years since you stumbled upon the most basic form of hyperspace manipulation. Most species take centuries to develop such technology." Marcus continued his silence, though internally he was cataloging everything. The guard positions, their weapons, the layout of the room, the timing of the security sweeps he'd observed through the transparent aluminum walls. His captors had made several crucial mistakes already. They'd assumed human military training was primitive. They'd underestimated human resilience, and most critically, they'd failed to properly search him. The nano-enhancement injections Marcus had received as part of an experimental military program were invisible to their scanners. The microscopic machines in his bloodstream were designed to activate under extreme stress, enhancing his strength, speed, and reflexes to superhuman levels. The technology was still classified, known only to a select few in Marine Special Operations Command. As far as official records showed, Staff Sergeant Kane was just another grunt infantry soldier. "Your silence grows tiresome," Vextal continued, beginning to pace around the restraint chair. "Let me tell you what will happen next. We will extract everything you know about human military capabilities, colony locations, and defensive installations. The process will be unpleasant for you, but quite educational for us. Then, when you have served your purpose, we will dispose of you in the same manner as the rest of your transport crew." The young guard, Kyle Ran, couldn't contain his enthusiasm. "Sub-Commander, surely we could provide the human with a demonstration of our superiority? I have never seen one of their kind under stress." Vextal considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. "An interesting proposition. Very well, release his right arm restraint. Let us see what this human considers resistance." The third guard, who had remained silent until now, moved to a control panel and entered a series of commands. The titanium shackle around Marcus's right wrist retracted with a soft pneumatic hiss. He flexed his fingers slowly, working feeling back into the limb while maintaining his stoic expression. Kylron approached with obvious excitement, his hand moving to the energy baton at his belt. The weapon could deliver enough electrical charge to incapacitate most humanoid species for several hours. "Show us, human. Strike me. Demonstrate your primitive fighting techniques." Marcus looked up at the young alien, and for the first time since his capture, he spoke. His voice was calm, measured, carrying the quiet confidence of a man who had spent his adult life in the business of violence. "You sure about that, son?" The question caught all three guards off guard. They had expected pleading or rage or fear. Instead, they heard something that made their enhanced combat instincts suddenly alert. There was no bravado in the human's voice, no false courage. There was only a matter-of-fact assessment of what was about to happen. Caloran's scarified features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. "The primitive speaks. Yes, human, I am quite sure. Your species has barely escaped your birth planet. You know nothing of real combat." Marcus nodded slowly, as if accepting this judgment. Then, with a movement so sudden it barely registered on the alien's enhanced perception, his free hand shot out and grabbed Kyle Rand's throat. The nano-enhancements had activated the moment he'd made the decision to act, flooding his system with performance boosters that turned him into something far beyond baseline human capabilities. The young Zephyrian's eyes went wide with shock as Marcus's grip tightened with hydraulic force. Kilran clawed at the human's arm. His strength considerable by galactic standards, but it might as well have been a child fighting a hydraulic press. 24 confirmed kills in the Titan Rebellion, Marcus said conversationally, his voice perfectly calm as he held the struggling alien. 15 more during the Proxima Centauri insurrection. That's just the official count, of course. There are others that never made it into the reports. Vextal and the third guard had their weapons drawn now, but they hesitated. Their comrade was directly in the line of fire, and the human's position made a clean shot impossible without risking Kyle Rand's life. "You see," Marcus continued, his grip still firm on the young alien's throat. "Your intelligence files are probably accurate about human technology. We did only achieve FTL recently, relatively speaking. But you made one critical error in your assessment." Kyle Rand's struggles were weakening, his face shifting to a darker shade of translucent pale. Marcus's enhanced strength was cutting off his air supply with mechanical precision. "What error?" Vextal demanded, his weapon trained on Marcus, but unable to find a clear shot. Marcus smiled for the first time since his capture, and it was not a pleasant expression. "You assumed that being new to space made us new to war. Humans have been perfecting the art of killing each other for over 10,000 years. We've had wars that lasted decades, conflicts that consumed entire continents, weapons that could crack planets. By the time we reached the stars, we had already learned every lesson about warfare that mattered." With a sudden, vicious twist, Marcus snapped Kyle Rand's neck. The sound echoed through the detention bay like a gunshot. The young alien's body went limp, and Marcus released it to collapse onto the deck plating. The remaining two guards opened fire immediately, but Marcus was already moving. The nano-enhancements made him faster than their targeting systems could track. He rolled behind the restraint chair as energy bolts scorched the air where he'd been sitting. The other restraints meant nothing now. The nano-machines in his bloodstream had analyzed their molecular structure and were already producing the specific enzymes needed to dissolve the binding compounds. "Alert! Alert!" The third guard was shouting into his communication device. "Prisoner has escaped containment, requesting immediate backup." But Marcus was already free of the remaining restraints. Moving with the fluid grace of a predator that had suddenly revealed its true nature. The Zephyrians had made their second critical error. They had assumed that superior technology automatically conferred superior tactical ability. Marcus had fought in gravity wells, in zero-G, in toxic atmospheres, and in the claustrophobic corridors of disabled spacecraft. Every environment had taught him something new about the application of violence. As alarms began to wail throughout the detention facility, Marcus Kane allowed himself a cold smile. His captors had wanted to see human resistance. He was about to give them a demonstration they would never forget. The detention facility's corridor stretched before Marcus like a metal canyon, lined with observation windows and security sensors that tracked his every movement. Red emergency lights bathed everything in a hellish glow, while automated voices announced the containment breach in the musical language of the Zephyrians. He moved through the chaos with purpose, his enhanced senses cataloging threats and opportunities with mechanical efficiency. Behind him, Sub-Commander Vextal coordinated the response with the cold professionalism of a career soldier. SEAL Sections 7 through 12. Deploy suppression drones to corridors A through F. All personnel switch to non-lethal capture protocols. Command wants this human alive for interrogation. Marcus smiled grimly as he heard those orders echoing through the facility's communication system. Non-lethal protocols. They still didn't understand what they were dealing with. In his 15 years as a Marine, he'd learned that the most dangerous enemy was one who underestimated human adaptability. The Zephyrians had superior technology, better weapons, and numerical advantage. What they didn't have was 3,000 years of human military doctrine refined through constant warfare. The first response team rounded the corner ahead of him. 6 Zephyrian soldiers in full combat armor, carrying stun weapons and deployment nets. They moved with the textbook precision of troops who had never faced serious resistance. Their formation was perfect for suppressing civilian riots or subduing primitive species, but it had critical flaws when facing an opponent trained in asymmetric warfare. Marcus pressed himself against the corridor wall and waited. The nano-enhancements had not only increased his physical capabilities, but also enhanced his cognitive processing speed. Time seemed to slow as his mind ran through tactical calculations with computer-like precision. Enemy positions, weapon ranges, environmental factors, probability matrices, all processed in milliseconds. The lead soldier passed his hiding spot, and Marcus struck. His enhanced strength allowed him to punch through the alien's armor plating like it was paper, his fist emerging from the other side in a spray of alien blood and circuitry. Before the others could react, he had spun the dying soldier around and was using the body as a shield while stripping the alien's sidearm. The Zephyrian plasma pistol felt alien in his hands. Too light, the grip designed for longer fingers. But the basic principles were universal. Energy cell, focusing chamber, trigger mechanism. Marcus adapted his grip and opened fire on the remaining soldiers. The aliens scattered, seeking cover behind support struts and maintenance panels, but their movements were predictable. They had been trained to fight other civilized species, races that followed established rules of engagement and tactical doctrine. Humans had never been civilized when it came to warfare. Marcus flanked left, using the facility's architecture to his advantage. The Zephyrians had designed their installation with wide corridors and high ceilings, perfect for their tall frames, but creating multiple angles of attack for a smaller, more agile opponent. He bounded off walls and support beams with inhuman grace, the nano enhancements allowing him to move in 3 dimensions, like a weapon given life. 2 more aliens fell to precisely placed shots before the survivors realized their tactical disadvantage. They began to retreat, calling for backup, but Marcus was already moving to his next objective. He had noticed something during his initial capture that his guards had missed. The facility's design incorporated human engineering principles. The Zephyrians were conquerors, not builders. As they expanded across the galaxy, they appropriated the best technologies and architectural concepts from defeated civilizations. This particular station showed clear influences from human space habitat design, which meant Marcus understood its layout better than his captors realized. He found what he was looking for 3 levels up, the facility's primary armory. The door was secured with biometric locks designed to read Zephyrian genetic markers, but the nanomachines in Marcus's bloodstream were already analyzing the lock mechanism. Within seconds, they had produced synthetic compounds that mimicked the required biological signatures. The armory was a testament to Zephyrian military superiority. Plasma rifles, particle beam weapons, gravity manipulation devices, armor suits that could withstand direct hits from starship weapons. Marcus ignored most of it, instead focusing on items that matched his training and experience. He selected a tactical harness designed for their lighter infantry, modified it to fit his human frame, and loaded it with weapons that he understood. The real prize was in the armory's data terminal. Marcus's enhanced cognitive abilities allowed him to rapidly decode the alien interface, accessing tactical information about the facility's defenses and, more importantly, communication logs with the Zephyrian fleet. What he discovered made his blood run cold. The attack on the New Horizon hadn't been random piracy or a territorial dispute. It was part of a systematic campaign to identify and eliminate human military capabilities before launching a full-scale invasion of Earth itself. The transport ship's passenger manifest had been specifically targeted because it contained colonial defense personnel, officers and NCOs who represented Earth's expanding military influence in this sector. Even worse, the Zephyrians had been studying human tactics for months, analyzing battle reports from colonial conflicts and developing countermeasures. They knew about human small unit tactics, orbital assault procedures, even details about Earth's defensive installations. But their intelligence had one critical gap. They had no knowledge of the nano-enhancement program that had produced soldiers like Marcus. He downloaded everything he could access onto a portable data crystal, then began his real work. If he was going to die in this facility, he would make sure Earth received advance warning of what was coming. The facility's communication array was located in the central command section, 15 levels above his current position. Between him and that objective were approximately 200 Zephyrian military personnel, automated defense systems, and enough firepower to level a small city. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a suicide mission. But Marcus Kane was no longer operating under normal circumstances. He began his ascent through the facility's maintenance shafts, moving through spaces too narrow for the tall Zephyrians to follow. The nano-enhancements allowed him to fold his body into impossible angles, slithering through ventilation systems and service tunnels like a mechanical snake. Behind him, he could hear the aliens coordinating search patterns, their voices growing increasingly frustrated as they realized their prisoner was no longer behaving like a primitive captive. "How is this possible?" Vextal's voice echoed through the facility's communication system. "Our intelligence indicated humans possess no enhanced soldiers. Their genetic modification programs are limited to basic medical applications." Marcus almost laughed as he listened to the aliens' confusion. The Zephyrians were learning the same lesson that had surprised humanity's enemies for millennia. Never assume you know everything about human military capabilities. The enhancement program was compartmentalized beyond their intelligence-gathering abilities, hidden within bureaucratic layers that would have required years to penetrate. He reached the command level just as the facility's security protocols escalated to the next phase. Blast doors sealed sections of the station, artificial gravity fluctuated to disorient potential escapees, and hunter-killer drones began prowling the corridors with sensors tuned to human biosignatures. But Marcus had anticipated this response. While the aliens had superior technology, they relied too heavily on automated systems and standardized procedures. Humans had learned to improvise, to think outside established parameters, to turn an enemy's strengths into weaknesses. The command center's entrance was guarded by a squad of Zephyrian elites, soldiers who had earned their positions through dozens of successful conquests. They carried weapons that could vaporize armored vehicles, wore suits that provided full environmental protection, and moved with the confidence of troops who had never been defeated. Marcus watched them through a maintenance grate, studying their patrol patterns and defensive positions. The nano-enhancements were providing constant tactical updates, calculating probability matrices and suggesting attack vectors. But beyond the technological advantages, he had something his enemies couldn't quantify, the accumulated experience of a species that had spent its entire existence learning new ways to kill. He began his assault not with violence, but with psychological warfare. Using the facility's internal communication system, he tapped into the command frequency and began speaking in perfect Zephyrian, his enhanced memory having absorbed their language during the interrogation sessions. "This is Staff Sergeant Marcus Kane, United States Marine Corps," his voice echoed through their helmets. "To the soldiers in the command center, you have 30 seconds to surrender before I demonstrate why humans have never been conquered by an alien species." The effect was immediate. The guards looked at each other with confusion and growing alarm. Their intelligence files contained no record of humans possessing translation capabilities this advanced, and the confidence in the voice suggested resources they hadn't accounted for. "Impossible," one of them whispered. "The human should not be capable of accessing our communication systems." 20 seconds, Marcus continued, his voice carrying the matter-of-fact tone of someone accustomed to delivering ultimatums. "I'm going to enter that command center, and I'm going to send a message to Earth. You can either be alive when that happens, or you can be obstacles to remove. Your choice." The guards raised their weapons, scanning for the source of the transmission, but Marcus was already moving. He had spent those 30 seconds identifying the weak point in their defensive formation, a structural support beam that ran directly above their position. What happened next would later be analyzed by Zephyrian military tacticians as a perfect example of human unpredictability in combat. Instead of attacking from ground level as expected, Marcus emerged from above, dropping among the guards like an avenging angel. The nano-enhancements turned him into something beyond their experience, faster than their reflexes, stronger than their armor, and more ruthless than they had thought possible. The battle lasted less than 90 seconds. When it was over, Marcus stood alone among the wreckage, his stolen Zephyrian weapons smoking in his hands. The command center lay open before him, its communication arrays reaching toward Earth with the promise of salvation for his species. The command center was a cathedral of alien technology, its walls lined with holographic displays showing star maps, fleet positions, and tactical assessments that painted humanity's future in stark mathematical terms. Marcus moved between the control stations with purpose, his enhanced cognitive abilities rapidly decoding the Zephyrian interface protocols. The data he had stolen from the armory was already painting a terrifying picture, but what he found here confirmed his worst fears. The invasion fleet was massive, 374 capital ships, each capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag. Support vessels numbering in the thousands, carrying enough troops to occupy every human colony simultaneously. And most disturbing of all, detailed intelligence reports on Earth's defensive capabilities that were frighteningly accurate. Marcus's fingers flew over the alien controls, his nano-enhanced reflexes allowing him to process information at superhuman speeds. The Zephyrians had been planning this assault for over 2 years, systematically probing human space, analyzing weaknesses, identifying key targets. They knew about the orbital defense platforms around Earth, the fleet strength at each major colony, even the classified locations of military research facilities. But as he dug deeper into their intelligence files, Marcus discovered something that made him smile despite the desperate situation. For all their technological superiority and careful planning, the Zephyrians had made one critical error in assessment. They viewed humans through the lens of every other species they had conquered, civilized, organized, predictable. They had no concept of human adaptability under extreme pressure, no understanding of how quickly his species could innovate when facing extinction, and absolutely no knowledge of programs like the one that had created soldiers like Marcus himself. The facility's internal alarms were growing more insistent, and he could hear Sub-Commander Vextall coordinating a final assault on the command center. Time was running out, but Marcus had found what he needed: access to the Zephyrian military's secure communication network. He began composing his message to Earth, encoding it with military protocols that would ensure it reached the highest levels of command. But this wasn't just a warning about an impending invasion. Marcus had realized that his current situation presented an unprecedented opportunity for intelligence gathering. The nanomachines in his bloodstream were capable of more than just physical enhancement. They could interface directly with technology, copying data, analyzing systems, even creating detailed technical schematics of alien equipment. As he worked at the command console, microscopic machines were crawling across every surface, absorbing information about Zephyrian technology that could revolutionize human capabilities. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. The final assault was beginning. Marcus activated the facility's internal defenses, turning their own security systems against them. Blast doors sealed sections of the station, creating choke points that would force the attackers into kill zones. Automated turrets switched to targeting protocols that identified Zephyrian biosignatures as hostile. The irony wasn't lost on him. The aliens' reliance on standardized technology made it vulnerable to someone who understood unconventional tactics. Every system they trusted was now working against them, turned by a human who had spent his career learning to improvise with whatever tools were available. His message to Earth was nearly complete when the first assault team breached the outer defenses. Marcus could hear plasma fire and the distinctive whine of Zephyrian energy weapons, but the automated systems were buying him precious time. The nano-machines had finished their data collection, storing terabytes of information about alien technology, tactics, and strategic capabilities. But then, Subcommander Vextal did something unexpected. Instead of continuing the assault, he opened a communication channel to the command center. Human soldier. Vextal's voice carried a tone Marcus hadn't heard before, something that might have been respect. I underestimated your capabilities. Our intelligence files clearly contain significant gaps regarding your species' military development. Marcus paused in his work, curious where this was leading. That's the problem with intelligence files, he replied. They only tell you what someone wants you to know. Indeed, I have reviewed the casualty reports from your escape. 47 of my soldiers are dead or injured. The damage to this facility will take weeks to repair. You have accomplished this alone, with improvised weapons and stolen equipment. Your point? My point, human, is that perhaps we have been hasty in our assessment of your species. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 600 worlds, absorbed countless civilizations. But we have never encountered resistance quite like this. Marcus completed the final encryption protocols for his message and initiated the transmission burst toward Earth. The data packet would travel at faster than light speeds, reaching human space in approximately 18 hours. Even if he died here, Earth would have advance warning and detailed intelligence about their enemies. Resistance is what we do, Marcus said simply. It's what humans have always done when someone tries to take our freedom. I am prepared to offer terms, Vextal continued. Surrender now, and you will be treated as a prisoner of war according to galactic conventions. Continue this futile resistance, and you will die when we breach the command center. Marcus looked around the command center, at the alien technology he had turned to his own purposes, at the intelligence data that would give Earth a fighting chance. The nano-enhancements were providing constant updates on his physical condition. Minor injuries, elevated stress hormones, but still capable of continued combat operations. Counteroffer, he said, beginning to input new commands into the facility's systems. You have 5 minutes to evacuate this station before I detonate the primary power core. The silence that followed was telling. Marcus had spent the last hour studying the facility's technical specifications, and he had discovered something interesting about Zephyrian engineering. Their power systems were incredibly efficient, but also remarkably unstable when pushed beyond normal parameters. A few specific modifications to the containment field generators would create a cascade failure that would turn the entire station into a short-lived star. You would commit suicide rather than face capture? Vextal asked, and now there was definitely confusion in his voice. Not suicide, Marcus replied, his fingers dancing across the alien controls. Strategic denial of enemy assets. You see, Commander, you've been looking at this all wrong. You think this facility is a prison, but I think of it as a weapon. A very large, very explosive weapon currently positioned over your forward fleet staging area. Through the command center's transparent aluminum viewports, Marcus could see the Zephyrian fleet spread across the star system like glittering insects. Hundreds of ships representing decades of military investment, all conveniently gathered in one location for the final preparations of their invasion fleet. You are bluffing, Vextal said, but uncertainty had crept into his tone. The power core explosion would not be sufficient to damage our fleet at this range. Marcus smiled grimly and activated the facility's navigational thrusters. The station began to move, its massive bulk slowly accelerating toward the fleet concentration. You're right, the explosion alone wouldn't be enough. But this station weighs approximately 4 million tons and contains enough antimatter to power a small city. Elementary physics, Commander, mass times velocity equals a very bad day for anyone nearby. The communication channel erupted with alien voices as Vextal coordinated with his fleet commanders. Marcus could hear the panic building as they realized what the human was attempting. Their ships began emergency departure procedures, but the massive capital vessels couldn't maneuver quickly enough to escape the expanding danger zone. "This is madness!" Vextal shouted. "You cannot hope to destroy our entire fleet." "I don't need to destroy all of it," Marcus replied calmly, monitoring the station's acceleration as it built toward terminal velocity. "Just enough to delay your invasion long enough for Earth to prepare proper defenses." See, that's another thing your intelligence files missed about humans. We're really good at buying time with our lives when it matters. The facility shuddered as the Zephyrian assault teams renewed their attack on the command center, but Marcus had already sealed the critical systems behind multiple security barriers. Even if they reached him now, the cascade failure was beyond their ability to stop. He opened a final communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies to ensure his message reached every ship in the enemy fleet. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of a man who had already accepted his death, but refused to waste it. "This is Staff Sergeant Marcus Kane, United States Marine Corps, serial number 2847-9356-7742. To the Zephyrian fleet and any other alien forces monitoring this transmission, you made two critical errors in your assessment of humanity. First, you assumed that being new to space made us new to warfare. Second, you thought superior technology automatically makes superior soldiers." The station's massive bulk was now hurtling toward the heart of the fleet formation, its antimatter core building toward critical instability. Emergency klaxons wailed throughout the facility as automated systems attempted to prevent the cascade failure, but Marcus had corrupted their programming beyond repair. "You want to invade Earth? Then understand what you're facing. Every human you kill will be replaced by 10 more who are angrier, smarter, and more determined than the last. Every victory you achieve will teach us something new about how to defeat you, and every time you think you understand us, we'll show you just how wrong you are." The blast doors to the command center finally gave way, and Subcommander Vextal appeared with the surviving members of his assault team. Their weapons were trained on Marcus, but there was no longer any point in capturing him. The cascade failure had reached the point of no return. "You have doomed yourself for nothing, human," Vextal said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Even if you damage our fleet, the invasion will merely be delayed, not prevented." Marcus looked up from the control console, meeting the alien commander's eyes without fear. "Maybe. But now Earth knows you're coming. Now they have your technology, your tactical data, your fleet positions. And now they know that one Marine with the right training can tear apart your best facility and threaten your entire fleet." He gestured toward the viewports, where the first Zephyrian ships were desperately fleeing the impact zone. "How many of your soldiers are going to volunteer for ground assault duty when word spreads about what happened here? How many of your commanders are going to recommend invading a world full of humans after they hear this story?" The station's hull began to glow as it entered the outer atmosphere of a nearby moon, its trajectory aimed directly at the fleet's flagship. Vextal and his soldiers were already retreating, heading for their own escape pods as the facility transformed itself into a 4-million-ton kinetic weapon. Marcus remained at his post, monitoring the final stages of the cascade failure and ensuring his message to Earth transmitted successfully. The nano-enhancements were keeping him functional despite the increasing radiation levels, but even they had limits. In his final moments, as the facility's antimatter core reached critical mass and the hull began to disintegrate around him, Marcus Kane allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Earth would survive. Humanity would adapt, overcome, and probably figure out how to turn Zephyrian technology against them within a few years. Because that's what humans did. They took the worst possible situation and found a way to make it work in their favor. They turned defeats into victories, weaknesses into strengths, and enemies into cautionary tales told across the galaxy. The explosion that consumed the detention facility and crippled the Zephyrian invasion fleet could be seen from 3 star systems away, but its real impact would be felt across the galaxy as word spread about the human who had refused to stay captured, who had turned a prison into a weapon, and who had proven that Earth's newest children of the stars were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The Zephyrian invasion was postponed indefinitely. Other alien civilizations quietly removed human space from their expansion plans, and in the files of every galactic military force, a new entry appeared warning of the species that had learned to wage war among the stars as naturally as they breathed. Humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage. The message was simple. We are here, we are armed, and we are absolutely not going quietly into the night.